everyone. Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Why I Love Flagler County, your local podcast spotlighting local businesses and local residents on what they love about being a part of Flagler County. So today I'm super excited to have my guest, Miss Tina Marie, with us today. Tina Marie, thank you so much for the time today. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. I'm happy to be here.
Of course. Well, I mean, I was going through some of the stuff, the credentials you have on your record, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a person who has done it all. So I'll kind of let you explain a few of these things. But first off, why don't we start off easy and you can tell me a little bit about your journey coming here to Flagler County.
So, um, I'm from Idaho, but I was born in New Jersey, but didn't live there very long. And when I got married young, and our husband and I decided to get out of Jersey, he was from Long Island, and I wanted mountains and trees. Ended up in the Rocky Mountains in North Idaho, and lived there most of our lives, raised our children there. And then when we were deciding where to retire, we were, my husband said, "Well, about Arizona." I'm like, "No." And then my sister said, "Well, everybody from Jersey goes to Florida." I'm like, "Okay." And so I'm like, "Where in Florida would we go?" And then my brother-in-law said, "We'll go to Bunnell." I'm like, "Why?" I mean, it's like this little place in the middle of nowhere, And he said, "Well, my great-grandfather founded Alva Bunnell was my great-grandfather." I was like, "Okay." So we came down here in 2014 and looked around, and looked at Palm Coast, looked at Flagler County, and fell in love with Bunnell. It was the little small hometown feel like we had up in the Rocky Mountains there. And so we ended up buying some property, and in 2016 started building our house, and it was finished in 2017. And so here we landed because of
Wow.
a great grandfather that started the town. So it was kind of funny. But
Yeah.
interesting enough, my brother-in-law doesn't say Bunnell, he says Bunnell. So
Okay.
I don't think there's anybody original around that's left that knows how it's supposed to be pronounced, but I went with his. I didn't argue with my brother-in-law. And so yeah, so just kind of fell in love with the community, and it reminded me a lot of the community we were in Idaho, where people were like close knit and neighborly, and you know, um, so we really liked it down here. So that's why we moved down here. And one of the things that I was always very active in was in community,
Mm.
uh, volunteering and being part of the community, and doing good for my neighbors is one of the things that is it moves me. It's
Yeah.
the right thing to do, and I raised my kids that way, and so always involved in the city part of it and the charitable group part of it. So yeah, so that's what I've been doing since we came down here. So
That's amazing. Oh my gosh, you're like Bunnell royalty essentially is what I'm hearing.
no, not really,
Or
but
is it should I pronounce it Bunnell or is it Bunnell?
I don't know. I'm just gonna, it's I don't want to just if you go to Google and you ask Google, it says Bunnell, but
Oh,
you never know.
I feel like if I say Bunnell, people will think I'm more foreign than I am like
Right.
than I
Yeah.
know the roots of Bunnell, you
Everybody down here
know?
says pronounced, so we're going with that. So
Okay, sounds good. That's like if you go to like Kissimmee and then you say like, "Oh, this is Kissimmee," and they're like, "No, it's
no,
not."
it's not. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that is so cool. I think that's gotta be like one of the best stories I've heard when I asked that question. I feel like we all get kind of like, oh, a family member kind of pushed me to move to Flagler. But I feel like I don't think I've ever gotten a story where it's like, oh, our Bunnell is part of my
Is in
family line.
my extended family's wrist. He actually has a picture of one of Alva's daughters, who's his grandmother.
Mhm.
When they moved up to the Pineys in New Jersey, and they had the first car in Ocean County, New Jersey, and it was in the newspaper and in the Star Ledger that.
Yeah. maybe that's why we
Um,
have so many New Jersey people down here now. Is that
oh,
like they could sense it. They could sense the first car was from Bunnell. They have to come down here.
no.
Oh, that's super cool. Well, I so love that you talked about, being a part of a community, because that's really what this podcast was for me, was really just being connected with community leaders and just anyone who's a part of it. Because like you mentioned, it really it's given me a passion that I didn't even kind of realize I had until I really pushed through this podcast. But it's been such a pleasure to hear all these different stories about Flagler County that I would have never known existed until now. So thank you so much for sharing about that. Well, you're pretty active down here in the community. Do you want to kind of share a little bit on how that first was? Is, you're new, you have some roots here, but you're still new to the community and kind of getting inundated to where you are now.
So I did the same thing when I moved to Florida, that I did when I moved to Idaho. I went up to the mayor and I said, "You have a volunteer here, put me to work." And so when I came down, um, I actually built our houses right across the street from Mayor Catherine Robinson, and I did the same thing to her. I said, put me to work. I'm here. You've got someone that's interested, and I'm willing to help whatever you need. So I ended up on the code enforcement board. I got appointed to that. And then when I saw the opportunity to run for commissioner, so my neighbors asked me to run, and I was like, okay, well, I'm really not a politician, and I don't, usually running for elections is a popularity contest.
Sure.
And that's I'd rather just do the work and, be that. But I ran, and I ended up losing the first time, and I ran again a second time, and um, I lost by a few votes, and I just said, well, you know, people just need to see me and see that I can. So when I got appointed, one of our commissioners, or two of our commissioners, actually resigned that one year in 21, and I got applied to be a fill-in for that position, and I got put in. And then when elections came up, I ran, and then I was elected. So,
Yeah.
and I proudly serving my neighbors, and I'm a public servant. I'm not a politician. So, it's I'm here to do good as long as people want me to help them out, and I
Yeah.
pay attention to what my neighbors say and what people concerns they have. And I'm, looking to make sure that we move our community in a positive direction. So
Yeah,
it's going to
definitely.
benefit everybody. So
For
yeah.
sure. Yeah, well, that's amazing. And I so love that you mentioned that, you ran the first time and you lost, and then you ran a second time and you lost by a few votes. And I think it's easy for us to kind of give up at kind of the first sign of like hardships of like, oh,
Mhm.
maybe it's not meant to be, or maybe it's just not something I want to do. But for you, because you're driven by being a public servant and because you are driven by just community and helping out your neighbors, you're like, well, I'm still going to keep going because it's really just something for you to continue giving back to the community. And I mean, even before you got, into being a commissioner, you were doing that anyway for the community.
Mhm.
So I don't think, from what it sounds like, it didn't sound like, oh, it was the end of the world and I couldn't do anything to help out. And, now you're here. So it's funny how timing always works out that way.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I mean, you've been here for a few years. I would say anyone who's here pre-pandemic is basically like a Flagler veteran at this point, because so many of us are post-pandemic move-ins. But what do you like to do around the community? And I mean, you also highlighted volunteering, which is a very popular answer when I ask that question. So what are some of the favorite places you like to volunteer, places to go to, events to go to, groups to join, anywhere people can kind of get active in the community, just like yourself?
Sure. So there's so much to do. I mean, if you want to volunteer or just be a part of an event or whatever, I currently sit on the Family Life Center Board of Directors, and I also help them with some fundraising ideas, and helping them because move, in a positive direction um, with that group, and it's well needed in the community. Um, One of the things that I was always passionate about was the Historical Society.
Mm,
And when I was in North Idaho, I served on the Historical Society board. And then down here, I like to promote the Historical Society. We have wonderful buildings that are on the National Register and things, especially in Bunnell. We have Holden House, we have our water tower. So we have different buildings and sites that are on the National Historic Register. Um, I always believe in preserving history for the future. And so that's one of my passions is to try to find things to donate to the Historical Society. One of our neighbors passed away, and they cleaned in the house, and people really didn't
Mhm.
know they were throwing away. Yes, I
Mm.
was dumpster diving to make sure. And I found a little book that was handwritten in like 1916
Wow.
from one girl to another girl, from Moody to her friend. And so it was, so I found that and I called the president, Ed from the Historical Society. I'm like, I got some books. Do you want them? I found and so I gave them to him. So that's in the museum there now to look at. And so I know it doesn't, you think, well, that doesn't mean it, but it's going to mean something to somebody at some point to see that.
Yeah.
Uh, there's veterans groups. That's my other passion. I was past president of the VFW Auxiliary in North Idaho.
Mhm.
So any veterans type of activity, I'm really passionate about um, supporting our disabled veterans and
Yeah.
veterans in general.
Yeah.
So there's lots of stuff to do in Flagler. There's so many events. If you go on, social media and stuff, you'll look and there's spring festivals and there's um, cracker days and there's all kinds of different activities. And one of the fun things that we're bringing to Bunnell this year, as the city of Bunnell, is the Italian Festival in October. It's
Woo!
at the Flagler Fairgrounds, October 19th and 20th. And we were looking for ways to raise funds to do community things as a city without having to hit the general fund, which is a
Mm.
lean budget, and you don't want to hit the taxpayers left and right. They end up getting nickel and dime, and that really, I wanted to find a way to generate some funds to help with, 4-H or the Family Life Center, different groups that are in our community. And so don't let my last name fool you. My family name is Bonaventura. I'm as Italian as they get. And um, and I've chaired um, Italian festivals up in North Idaho. I started an Italian lodge up there, um, the first and only Italian lodge in the state of Idaho for
Oh,
orders of Italy and
wow.
and so I said I'll help chair an Italian festival in Flagler County. We don't have one, so we're going to have our taglines: "Come for the food, stay for the fun." So
Yes.
food, entertainment, spaghetti eating contests, you name it, we're going to have it. Kids activities. And the most important thing to me is it's free admission. So you don't have to pay $5 a person to come through the gate. It's come spend your money, get a cannoli for the kid, kind of thing. But we will have youth groups and charitable groups at the gate collecting $1 per car, and that helps
Nice.
right to them. So,
Yeah. Oh, that's
but
awesome.
love going to the beach. I love, trying out new restaurants, and I love shopping local as much as I can, and just be a part of the community that I live in. So it's
Mhm.
important to me. So,
Yeah. Well, there are so many amazing things that you talked about that I want to touch on just really quickly. Is number one, the Historical Society. That's amazing, that you are so active with that. And it's so easy for us to discount, I guess, like our history. And like you said, maybe me personally, I don't find any value in the book that you found, but someone can.
mhm.
Like when my grandma passed in 21, we were going through all her things. She kept pretty much everything. Like, for example, this is something we found in her jewelry box, and we found old um what's it called? We found her old papers from when she came to America from China. So she had all of her old currency from Hong Kong. She had her citizenship papers, all the tests she had to take to prove that she knew enough English, knew about no, enough about America to come over. It was just so amazing to like just look through for a few minutes and see all these amazing things of wow, that's what it was like. What is it like? Maybe 50 years ago when she came over. It
Mhm.
was just incredible to see. Also, the Italian American festival coming up is amazing. I love Italian culture. I always really wanted to be Italian growing up, and I was like really upset that like I love my cultures. I'm half Indian, half Chinese. I love it so much, but I'm like I would love to throw in Italian in there. So I'm so excited about this festival coming up, and I will do absolutely my part in promoting it because I think that's an amazing thing you guys are doing. And
Thanks.
free admission and just having those organizations just for the parking, that goes back to them is so awesome that you guys are doing that. So I
Right.
will definitely be going for the food. I'll definitely be going for the fun. So I'm really excited for that. So Tina Marie,
Right.
thank you so much for the time sharing your all of your journeys, all of the amazing things you've done for this community on here. I'm so honored and I so appreciate it.
Thank you.
Of course. And to everyone listening, I really appreciate you as well. And I will see you next time. Bye.